we will be learning into C programming functions, and I will cover functions concepts in this video so that you can move on to carry out programming aspects using functions. Function is a named block of statements written for carrying out a specific task. The user-defined functions are invoked by calling them in main function or some other user-defined functions. A return type. The function will have return type, function name, and arguments to be passed to that function. And the function body contains local variables and the statements within that function. And finally, there will be a return value depending upon return type. This is an example of simple function. The name of the function is calculate. The function return type is integer and the function takes 3 arguments. This function is written outside the main and it is called within the main. After execution of this function will return a integer value. This is a skeletal structure of a user defined function writing and its calling. Let us go deep. Here I am illustrating a simple function called display. This function is not returning any type, so it is having void here. This function only does one output, that is welcome to functions will be displayed on the screen. If you look into the main, in main function I am calling the function display. Wherever I call the function display, the display function written by me will be executed and the output welcome to functions will be displayed on the screen. If you look into the function prototyping, you can write function after main function also. That is, you can define user defined functions after main. If you want to do like that, the prototype of the function has to be written before the main function. So here I am writing prototype, then main function. Afterwards, I am fully defining the function display. There are different ways of writing a function. Now we will go into one after the other. Let us assume that we are about to write a function with the name bigger. The bigger function will return integer value. That means if you take two values, integer x and y, whichever value is higher, that value will be returned by this bigger function. If you observe carefully, the bigger function is not having any arguments here. It is having only return type. So this model is function with return type and no arguments. So because there are no arguments, we define variables inside the function and carry out the logic and return the appropriate value. Because this function is returning integer value, in the calling main function, we have written this statement c equal to bigger. When you write c equal to bigger, the meaning of it is bigger is on the right side of the assignment. When bigger is on the right side of the assignment operator, it is about to return a value and the return value is caught by the c variable, and the variable c will hold the bigger among the two values. Now this is displayed to the user. Another model is having arguments and without return type. Because it is not having return type, that means we have written here void and there is no return statement inside the main bigger function. Instead of return statement, we directly print out the bigger among the two numbers here. Because it is not returning any value, the bigger function is not returning any value. Here, while calling the bigger function, I am passing the arguments, but I am not catching the return value because the function doesn't return anything. This is another model. And the another model is no return type, no arguments. This function doesn't return anything, that is void, and it does not take any argument. So we declare variables inside the bigger, we read the values for the bigger, we identify which is the bigger among the x and y values and display the bigger value in the bigger function itself. And if you observe the main function is having very less work because all the work is carried out by the bigger function itself. Now here we'll be calling only bigger. And coming to the methods of calling a function or ways of calling a function, there are two methods. One is call by value, another is call by reference. In call by value mechanism, the arguments are values to the function. In call by reference mechanism, the arguments are addresses of the variables. How to use call by value mechanism and when we have to use call by reference mechanism. If we want the modifications done by the functions to be reflected in the main function, then we will use call by reference mechanism. If we don't want the modifications carried out by the method function to be reflected in the main function, then we will use call by value mechanism. Referenced as val array in the max-min function. This is how we pass arrays to a function. Pass it to this recursive factorial and the value will be copied to the m. Next time the m-1 will be passed to the same function and it will call itself until the first condition is met. The moment the condition is met becomes true, then the recursion stops and the value will be returned to the main function and the output will be displayed on the screen. Thank you very much for listening to this function class.